Welcome back to another Explainer. Today, we're totally stripping away the geopolitical headlines and the exhausting 24-hour news cycles to look at the ancient, beating heart of one of the absolute most critical locations on Earth, the Strait of Hormuz. Now, when you hear that name, you're probably instantly thinking of global energy markets, naval fleets, or tense press briefings. But today, we're going to look right past the surface of the water. We're diving into the deep geology, the seemingly impossible ecosystems, and the forgotten human communities that navigate this extreme environment, not for profit, but for absolute daily survival.
21 million. Just let that staggeringly massive number sink in for a second. That is the exact number of barrels of oil that move through this narrow, 21-mile-wide passage every single day. The strait is quite literally the precise junction between east and west. It's a corridor folded by deep tectonic forces that has served as the hinge point of human history for 5,000 years. Pretty much every major power on Earth has a contingency plan for this exact spot.
We're talking about a full 1/5 of absolutely everything the modern world burns just to stay alive, all flowing through this single geographical choke point. The entire global economy is basically tethered to this tiny, vulnerable sliver of geography. But here's the thing. While the whole world is obsessively watching the oil, it completely misses the breathtaking reality of the land and the people right there on the edges of it.
But here's where it gets wild. It's the ultimate juxtaposition, right? On one side, you have a trillion-dollar flow of global trade and modern empire floating by. On the other side, passing quite literally right outside their windows, is a community of about 6,000 people living on Hormuz Island. It's a volcanic salt island with zero groundwater, absolutely no arable soil, and they have no share in the immense wealth floating past their shores. So it begs the question, how do people actually live in the most strategically dangerous strait on Earth?
Section 1. Geology deeper than empire.
So to really understand this place, we have to look at an incredible process called salt diapurism. Hundreds of millions of years ago, Precambrian salt deposits were buried under just unimaginable pressure. Slowly, over ages, they forced their way upward through the Earth's crust, violently dragging basalt, iron compounds, and these incredibly vibrant minerals straight to the surface. This is exactly what gives Hormuz Island its totally otherworldly Mars-like red ochre and sulfur yellow surface. In fact, NASA has actually pointed out that the island's chemical composition is closer to the surface of Mars than pretty much anywhere else on Earth. No way, right?
Let's put this into perspective across deep time. We kick things off 600 million years ago with that deep salt shifting around. Fast forward to 50 million years ago, and the incredibly resilient Hyrcanian forest takes root. 30 million years ago, the Hara mangroves show up and begin doing their thing. And then, at the very, very end of our timeline, in the year 1507, the Portuguese Empire arrives. It really shows you how incredibly fleeting a 500-year-old human empire is when you stack it up against the 30-million-year-old ecosystems that actually define this land.
Take 1507, for example. The Portuguese show up and build this massive fortress out of the island's own redstone to control the strait. But they built their grand monument from a material they totally didn't understand. Today, thanks to the relentless, punishing combination of salt air, sky-high humidity, and the mineral-rich nature of this stone itself, that fortress is literally dissolving. The enduring, deep geologic rock is just quietly reclaiming the human architecture. The island is taking its stone back, plain and simple.
Section 2. Life at the extremes.
Okay, 159 degrees Fahrenheit. Let that sink in. That is literally the highest land surface temperature ever measured on Earth, confirmed by NASA satellite data in Iran's Dasht-e Lut desert, just inland from the strait. This completely mind-boggling heat comes from the basin geometry, ridiculously low humidity, and a total lack of vegetation. The ground just absorbs and radiates heat without any interruption whatsoever.
The absolute thermal core of this desert, it's one of the very few places on our planet where nothing living has been confirmed to survive. Not even bacteria. None. Yet, right outside this deadly scorching core, ancient nomadic caravans regularly passed through. For them, knowing which specific paths held water, which landforms offered a tiny bit of shade, and which stars corresponded to hidden wells, well, that wasn't just interesting trivia. It was literal life-or-death survival infrastructure passed down through generations.
But right next door, nature is pulling off some absolute miracles, showing unprecedented resilience across these varied ecosystems. You've got the Hara Biosphere Reserve, where 30-million-year-old mangroves are essentially acting as giant biological desalination plants, filtering the heavy tidal salt right through their roots. You've got coral reefs out in the strait surviving in 35 degrees Celsius waters. I mean, those are temperatures that cause catastrophic mass bleaching literally everywhere else on the planet. Life here doesn't just scrape by. It completely masters the extreme.
Section 3. The People of the Strait. Jumping over to the Omani side of the strait, you hit the Musandam Peninsula. It's this jagged, dramatic wall of tectonic limestone plunging directly into the sea. And here, the indigenous Shihuh people built their homes right into the vertical tectonic fjords. They didn't try to build in spite of the crazy terrain, they leaned into it. They utilized the very logic of the rock, building vertical cliffside villages at elevations that protected them from fierce seasonal storms and, conveniently, from the gaze of maritime empires sailing right below them.
This brings us to this absolutely fascinating concept of survival geography. It completely dictates daily life. First off, locals let the tides, not clocks, dictate their schedules and fishing routes. Second, women doing intense outdoor labor under that blinding sun wear these highly protective borughe masks, a brilliant, incredibly functional adaptation. And third, get this, they amazingly incorporate golak, the island's iron-rich red soil, directly into their food. Yeah, they mix it into fermented fish sauce and spread it right on their flatbread. The distance between the environment and their identity just completely collapses.
Stand on those cliffs today, and you are looking at the ultimate modern contradiction playing out in real time. Over on your left, massive, hulking supertankers carrying millions of barrels of oil, representing literally trillions of dollars. On your right, tiny wooden fishing dhows heading out before the crack of dawn to catch shrimp and shark. They occupy the exact same physical water at the exact same moment, but they are operating under entirely, totally different understandings of what that space is actually for. Section 4. A map of our future. When you really step back and look at this landscape, the extreme heat, the intense geographic isolation, the sheer resource scarcity, and the slow, creeping encroachment of rising seas, you realize something pretty profound. This isn't just some quirky edge case. It is a map of what the rest of the world is rapidly moving toward. The margins of human experience are slowly, but very surely, moving toward the center.
And that brings us to an unavoidable truth. Adaptation isn't just some clever corporate strategy. It is a fundamental condition of existence. As global climates shift and water temperatures continue to rise, the people of Hormuz really show us the way forward. They prove, without a doubt, that we won't survive by trying to arrogantly conquer or overcome nature. True survival relies on learning to live intimately, humbly, and continuously alongside it, fully respecting its absolute limits.
So, as we wrap up this explainer today, I want you to just think back on the wild adaptations we've explored. The heat-adapted coral reefs, those dizzying cliffside villages, the brilliant biological desalination of the mangroves. Ask yourself, what is human stability really worth when the climate inevitably shifts? When the Earth's conditions change, and they absolutely always do, are we actually prepared to adapt our very way of life to survive, just like the people of the Strait of Hormuz have done for millennia? Definitely something to chew on. Thanks for joining me, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.